It would be pathetic just how much he sucks up to autocrats. If you didn't hear it, it was the usual suspects. Orban, who he hosted at Mar-a-Lago, Putin, who he continues to fawn over, Kim Jong-un, who he reportedly retained his love letters sent back and forth between the two of them, as well as President Xi. Now, Trump were just an ex-president doing those weird things. That would be one thing. But if he were in contention to be the guy who would hold the nuclear codes again, it becomes something totally different, something far more chilling. And there's a reason he looks up to these dictators so much. He's made clear to all of us, from his 2025 platform to the things he says, that he wants to be like them.
That was MSNBC host Nicole Wallace making some fantastic points. We talk a lot about how scary it is that Trump seems so obsessed with, and that he admires so much and so dearly these authoritarians across the world. And the way that he looks up to Putin, the way that he finds so incredible Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, Viktor Orban, and how whenever he cites why he finds them so stunningly incredible, it always relates to things that are authoritarian adjacent, as my voice gives out on me, to say the least. So, for example, he said before he likes that Kim Jong-un's generals stand at attention. That's how he wants his generals to stand or something. We've heard when it comes to his talk about Hitler, his admiration for how loyal, even though that was factually incorrect, but how loyal Hitler's generals were to him. And then he's talked about quick trials with drug dealers in China, as documented to him by Xi Jinping, and that they never get it wrong. They never make mistakes, and they just kill people out the wazoo. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And he's talked about how strong and with an iron fist Xi Jinping is able to govern. So it's not any compliments that would relate to any value we're supposed to align with. Instead, it's the authoritarian one, that he has complete and total power. Trump will say stuff to that effect. And so that we've talked about a lot. But one thing I haven't focused on so much is, for the side that focuses a lot on, and again, just go with me on this, their terminology, not mine, the alpha male energy, supposedly, that Trump exudes as he spends time every day lathering, bathing in orange makeup. Something about that is big and macho to the right wing. It's interesting they don't see how pathetic was the word that Nicole Wallace used, Trump is, in how he salivates, for lack of a better term, over these authoritarians across the world. And I do think he should be called weak, small, and pathetic for that. Not normally terms I use, I try to keep it a little bit respectful, but how can Trump do and say the things he does to us and says to us, and us not give up on the respect a little bit? Now, on this topic, I do want to get into this third term conversation where the right is saying, oh, it's so crazy that anyone on the left thinks Trump would want or would try to get more time in office, even if he won, then more than the 4-year term he's constitutionally obligated to stop after. Before I talk about that, here is a guy named Michael Knowles we've looked at before. He's on the Daily Wire. He's a right-wing political commentator saying this.
Trump is just incredible. Abolish term limits, make him president for life. I'm joking. Sort of, even though actually Ronald Reagan, his last political crusade was to abolish term limits. Also, just saying that. But hey, I digress. Regardless.
Let me say this. Some people on the left go something like, oh, it's fine if we're not trying to identify as patriotic, right? I don't want to be patriotic. But I think a lot of people resonate with the stance I have, which is we are people with the politics I have, right? And that's a particular window. There's people to the left of me, to the right of me, but right now the issue is very much coming from the right and people who have made it in positions of power there. But we are this is anti-patriotism right there, right? If you don't understand the value of the document that's behind me, if they can see it on camera, if they don't understand our constitutional democratic process and how it limits the power of the president and other officials, and why that's something that we should aggressively, passionately work in defense of and advocate in defense of, you don't actually love what this country stands for. Often people say America, what makes America America is not necessarily that we've embodied all the values that we strive for, but that we keep striving for those values. And if you just want to give up because you're mad with, as Michael Knowles might say, the degeneracy or something, you want to give up on that process altogether. You never loved what the country stood for, so the country. How often have we been accused because we want to change our healthcare system, or we're mad about poverty or food insecurity, that we're America haters? Well, if you hate the country so much, go somewhere else. And I've said before, no, loving the country, the love I have for my home and my country is in part exhibited by my will and ambition to make the country better. If I love the country and its people, then I should want to make the people have a better situation. And for all of that we've heard, the levying of that "you hate America" accusation, some of these people really seem to hate America, because now that this orange guy has convinced them he's more important than our democracy, they're willing to throw our democracy in the trash and this incredible constitutional process that we have. And again, that is the opposite of patriotism. Now, Public Notice is the Substack publication from Aaron Rupar, friend of the show, does incredible work. And here, Noah Berlotsky actually wrote this particular piece, and it's Trump isn't joking about serving 3 or more terms. And let me just emphasize a little further, okay? People are supporting Trump. He tried to engage in that fake elector scheme that would have kept him in power, even though the other guy lost. That's un-American. The apologia that we see for January 6th, people violently trying to block the certification of a free and fair election and murder politicians, that's un-American. And the ambition for a dictator is un-American. So I know it sounds like I'm being way more aggressive than I normally am, but sometimes we should have to say it like it is, and that's like it is. During Donald Trump's first term, this Public Notice piece writes, Republicans dismiss well-founded concerns that he would leave office willingly as silly. And then January 6th happened. Trump's coup attempt wasn't an aberration. If he returns to power, it's likely he and his minions will push to abolish the 22nd Amendment and its maximum of 2 terms for presidents. In fact, Project 2025 is already scheming to do just that, and you don't have to take it from us. Just listen to the man himself. And then it talks about this moment from Trump's NRA speech just recently. Take a look.
FDR, 16 years, almost 16 years. He was 4-term. I don't know. Are we going to be considered 3-term or 2-term? You tell me. Ronnie, what do you think? Are we 3-term or 2-term, if we will? But think of it. They're going to say, wonderful. Now, he did that State of the Union the other day. He was high as a kite. So I think we should call for drug tests on the debate. Yeah?
Trump here, as elsewhere, presents his assault on the Constitution and rule of law as a kind of semi-coherent joke, but looking at his history and plans for the future, his fantasies about making himself ruler for life don't seem funny. Exactly right. And then it goes on to point out, this is not the first time we've heard this from Trump. We've heard it many times. Here's one other example.
We are going to win 4 more years. And then after that, we'll go for another 4 years because, you know what, they spied on my campaign. We should get a redo of 4 years.
Then just continuing with this fantastic piece, Trump signaled for years that he likes the idea of holding on to the presidency for as long as he can. While he was in office, he floated the idea that he could serve more than 2 terms semi-regularly. During a July 2019 Turning Point USA conference in D.C., for instance, someone yelled out from the crowd, "President for life." Un-American. Trump chuckled and replied, "That's what they're afraid of, you know." Yes, it's like when people say, you have Trump derangement syndrome, or you're so obsessed with, yes, I'm terrified of this anti-democratic, unconstitutional, wannabe tyrant. Yes, I'm obsessed with it, and we should be if we love the country. Trump kept dreaming of an eternal MAGA reign as the 2020 campaign heated up. In January of that year, during a CNBC interview, Trump mused, "President Xi, president for life, okay? It's not bad." In February, immediately after being acquitted in his first impeachment, Trump shared a video which showed campaign posters for a Trump 2044 run, essentially a fantasy of rule by Trump eternal. And then it goes on. So it's not a joke. And by the way, I should have noted, and the piece did, that the lies Trump was telling about being spied on and all that. Ridiculous. And that being justification for another term. It's all ridiculous. But there's this thing with Trump that people do that you don't see them do with any Democrat, and probably not even most Republicans, which is because he says a lot of crazy stuff, you can say any one particular crazy thing was just him being silly, goofy, funny. He's just playing around. Come on. He's just playing around about ending democracy. Stop it. You're being dramatic. And the fact that we saw him try to block the peaceful transfer of power proves you're wrong. Okay. So if you're saying it's all just him goofing around and he wouldn't do it, and he's really going to mature into the office of the presidency if he wins, then you're wrong, because we saw him try to block the peaceful transfer. So that you can just shove into a trash can somewhere and leave it there. But I think still it's hard for us to imagine that this is a real feeling from Trump and from his followers. It's not that it would necessarily happen, to be sure. It's that the fact that he seems interested in such an idea means he could try, and that's dangerous enough for us to oppose him. Now, I've also said before that what he's done and intends on doing, and we know for sure he would try, is bad enough. So the fake elector scheme, bad enough. The local official schemes, bad enough, right? Him actually trying to stay in office even though he lost an election. We don't need to then speculate, well, would he then end the term limits and all that? I think he absolutely would want to, but we already have enough for people to know that Trump's unfit. And unfortunately, it's this weird situation where people don't even know about most of those things. And that's why I talk less about this subject, because it's like, well, first we just need to make sure people know about the basics, the fundamentals, the foundational things. Then we can get on to this sort of conversation. But once we're in it, yes, it's very frightening too, that clearly Trump's respect for democracy is so eensy-weensy tiny that he would be musing about such a thing. And then there's that moment from a Fox News town hall, and I'll actually play it for you again here, where he gets asked if he would weaponize his power as president to enact retribution, and then that's where the dictator question also comes in. And even if it was a joke, it's a deranged one.
The media has been focused on this and attacking you. Under no circumstances. You are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill. He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
So it makes no sense. This is what people need to admit. Either Trump's being serious, which he is, and that is horrible and he should not have the chance in this election that he does. Or you actually think he's being funny in all these moments, and you then have to admit sometimes his humor causes horrible things like January 6th, okay? Or he's the least funny person in history. Because when you get asked, would you enact retribution by unconstitutionally weaponizing your power in office? And your answer is only on day one. That's not humor. That's just you being a crazy person, okay? You're just an unwell, unhinged, crazy person. That's what that is. I'll leave it there. Please let me know what you thought of all that in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed.